So I wanted to get us a fun drink for this video, but I could find no such fun drinks. So we just have a very basic lemonade.
I swear we've got this in the UK.
What, that brand? I have never seen that before.
I'm pretty definite you can get this in the UK.
Oh, well...
I don't think it's like too abnormal to find this.
I've never seen that brand before, and it was in a glass bottle, so...
If you wanted like a typical like North American brand, you should have just got something like brightly coloured or blue.
Well, that's what I was kind of looking for, but then bright blue drinks scare me. Cheers. Because I knew we were filming this video, I went and watched the last one that we did together, like a sit-down one like this. Of course, you've been in vlogs. Yeah, so it was in a car, and I didn't realise, but that was a year and a half ago. It was when I was still in Copenhagen, and we were still long distance at that point. So quite a difference, really. The last video we filmed, we were long distance, and now we're living together. So yeah, we thought it would be interesting to do a video together discussing what it's been like living together since graduating this summer, because we moved pretty much straight in with one another. And I know for a lot of people, that's a big question if you're in a relationship, whether or not you're going to move in together after you've graduated, or how soon after graduation. So I do think firstly though, it's probably important to give some context to this video, because I feel like our lifestyle is obviously not normal in the sense that yes, we live together, but this is now the second place that we've lived together in the space of 4 months, because we're slow traveling at the moment. So we are traveling to different places and staying there for between 1 and 3 months. So we were in Berlin for 3 months. We were also living together in Berlin, and now we're in Canada and we're living here for a month together. So I just thought that was worth saying, because I don't know if that's going to influence like our answers to anything, because it's not like it's not like we're living in one place, and maybe it'd be different if we were living long term in one place.
I think our priorities in terms of the space we were living in would be different if we were living in one place each time, because obviously we can't be too picky with short-term rentals. The spaces that we get here, which we've still managed to find really nice spaces, but you can't always be, really picky on sort of the amount of rooms you want, what the facilities you have, where you're based, etc., etc.
True, yeah. I think if we were living somewhere long term, for example, I would have not chosen to live in a studio, but so far we've lived in 2 studios. Even though we've got a flight of stairs here, this is just going up to kind of like a sleeping area up there. So it's still technically one big room, which is also why it's so echoey. I do apologise about that. The ceilings are super tall and everything is marble and concrete in this apartment, so it's literally awful for filming any sort of video recording in. So I did ask for some questions on my Instagram to kind of structure this video, and I thought we'd start with, how long had you been dating when you first started talking about moving in together? I had to think about this. So do you know off the top of your head, can you think when we first started talking about it?
Yeah, but I thought the discussion was more about like uni.
Yeah, it was. And this is how it first came
because
about.
I thought we discussed it like at uni when we were moving into our third, when you were coming back from Copenhagen and we were moving into our 3rd year, and like the point was raised, but then like we just quickly realised that it wouldn't be best for us, because like why would we? We're still at university.
When we were at uni.
Yeah, we're still at university, like we don't want to isolate our friendships, like we've only got another year of this left, so we might as well do it, and which I think we decided was a good decision in the end. But I would say, because of that discussion, I feel like this felt natural.
Yeah. So why did we decide against moving in together whilst we were still at university?
Well, I sort of think it was, like I said before, it would have felt, I think, a bit odd as well, and especially like it would have felt like we were isolating from our friend groups as well, because when you're living at uni, it's so easy to like sort of be with your friends without feeling like you are with your friends. Because, for instance, like at uni, we would be cooking and you'd be in the same place as the people you're living with, your friends, and you get that time with them then, even though you're really busy doing your final year, and things like that. Whereas if we were living together, those times you would sort of have to like make separate time for your friends that you wouldn't necessarily have that time for. And it was easy as well. We were living in the same place, like we lived like 5 minutes.
There didn't feel like there was a need to.
And I wouldn't, I would have said at uni, if we had have done that, like I would have regretted that decision. Not because I would have disliked living with you, don't worry. But I just don't think I would have like had the same experiences with my friends and like being able to see them as much. And if I had seen them, it would have been in very like strict scenarios.
Yeah, you would have had to really plan to see them.
Exactly, and I don't think that's what you want to do. Like you want to have that, and because obviously I wanted to see you, and like it was very easy to just, it doesn't really matter in what scenario I see you in a way. Whereas with friends, sometimes it's got to, you don't typically just sort of like go around to theirs. Not all the time.
Yeah, I guess so. So that's what it ultimately came down to, that we knew that we were probably going to live together after uni, but you don't have all the time in the world to live with your friends. So we thought we'd just make the most of living with friends and then move in together afterwards.
You can choose to, I guess, live with friends.
Of course, but I think that's part of the university experience that we would have been forfeiting if we'd had chosen to live together at that moment in time.
But then again, I know a lot of friends that, obviously continue to live with friends after uni as well. Yeah. And to be fair, I don't think that would have been a bad decision either.
No.
But I think we would have either dependent on like career paths, I guess, and what we were doing. We would have wanted to make sure we were living very close to each other, so we weren't long distance or medium distance again. But because of what I guess we wanted to do and the lifestyle we wanted to live, obviously that just makes sense for us to live together, and we wanted to. That's the main thing.
I think a lot of things just aligned quite well in terms of our general goals, in terms of our plans after uni, that meant that this decision just kind of made sense to do it together. And I guess that kind of goes along with another question that I was going to ask, which is, were you nervous? These are a lot of questions combined into one. Were you nervous? Were you not sure? Did you feel like you had to? I feel like we've kind of covered that in the sense that for us it felt very natural and like kind of not just the logical thing to do, but
I think that's
felt the right thing to do.
I think that's the main point here, is that it felt so logical and natural, so that's why like maybe you could say it was correct. Because I feel like if there was potentially another option there, and like it was maybe a fight between them, or there was just, we sort of had to force the decision and the idea on ourselves, then it probably wouldn't have been the right decision at that time to do it. So I think because it felt so natural and correct to do, and such a seamless transition towards it, and the fact that we're saying now that we didn't have to think about it, I think that's why it's correct. But I think if we weren't at that point, then it probably wouldn't have been the best idea for us if we were still a little bit unsure. Yeah,
I think definitely, because I had a few people asking these kind of questions because they're also considering doing a similar thing. And I think if you're still feeling, I think it's natural to obviously feel nervous because it is a big life change, and you'll feel nervous at, when anything changes in your life potentially. But I think if you're feeling like you have to, or you're feeling, unsure, and there's potentially more cons than there is pros, then I think that probably shows that you're not ready for that next
but sometimes step. I don't even see it as sort of like a pros and cons list.
No.
Sometimes I would think if there's any sort of doubt there, then maybe it's not the right time, because you can all obviously there's always a load of circumstances surrounded, and it's not as linear and straightforward as as possible. But I think if there is anything there, you can always do it in the future. So if there is any doubt there, then just maybe hold off for that little bit of time, if you can, and then go for it, because it's always possible in the future, and that time period that elapses should I guess, help to make it make sense.
Yeah, I think this is another one of those things where for different people, it will take different amounts of time to feel ready for this. For us, it made sense straight after uni, but for other people, like I've got friends that have been in long-term relationships and they graduated and didn't move in together because they just didn't want that kind of next step, yeah? And I think that's totally fine. Like everyone is on a different timeline, I guess. How has your relationship changed since living together?
I would probably say if I had like two like side by side sort of images to be able to look at it, I think what we know about each other sort of in everyday life like is very much.
You really get to know one another.
Yeah, I've learned a lot more about your stomach.
I was not expecting you to say that.
and how that moves around.
You have to get comfortable pooing in front of one another.
I think also just like because you're with each other the entire time as well, you learn how to, I guess, where each other's like challenges are, where each other's like benefits are as well in a lot of things. And you know, it's about, I don't know, like it's very difficult to say, but I would say how it's changed is just, I think just generally I've learned a lot more about you and living with you. And like that's not to say, like obviously not to say it's in a bad way at all, but you just obviously, I don't think you realise, because typically you wouldn't see living with someone else as learning, but you are learning.
Yeah.
You're learning how to live with that person. You're learning how that person thinks, how that person does things, like even just simple things like cleaning and the general tidiness of areas. Like you learn how that person like works with things. And I think it's hard, it can be hard sometimes to obviously like align yourselves perfectly into that. And I think that is the main point. It's just about it. I've learned a lot more about you and about how to align with you, and we'll continue to, I'm sure, to learn how to align with you, and I'm sure you will do exactly the same with me. And yeah, I think that obviously covers a lot of topic areas and a lot of bases, but in general...
Yeah. I was going to say something along very similar lines, to be honest, in the sense that I think you go from being just kind of part of one another's lives to kind of like doing life together. What are your favourite parts about living together?
I'm glad it went that way.
Oh no, the next question is one of the least favourite parts. No, not the least favourite, but the challenges. But anyway, firstly we'll talk about what are your favourite parts about living together. Sid has no answers.
I haven't thought, no.
Okay, well I can start then.
Please.
My favourite parts about living with Sid is that you really take care of me, and that's nice. Like Sid will really wait on me. Like he'll, in the evenings, for example, after we've had dinner, that he'll always make me my peppermint tea. No, but also I think what you were saying before about the fact that we've learned so much about one another since living together, I think that has been one of my favourite things as well.
I've also learned just how simple it is to make you happy, so that's why it's easy for me.
Easily pleased.
I mean, it did take me a good month, mind you, to figure out which tea I should give you each time of day.
He's trying to give me green tea at like 8 p.m.
Green tea, it's herbal.
No, it's got caffeine in it. And it's just nice doing life together. I enjoy doing life with you.
Yeah. Now I have to...
Well, if you've got nothing to say, then I guess.
What was the question again?
What are your favourite parts about living together?
I think the main thing, to be honest with you, is that I have a friend there constantly. I was going to try and say this, and then I knew you were going to... Because also what I'm going to say is then... Because I like being able to come home to someone that's a friend and enjoy knowing that you're here when I'm home, and it's much better than having to come back and then there's not going to be anyone here. That's why I like knowing that you're here when I come back. from
I'm gonna cry.
No. From whatever I'm doing. So I think that is the favourite part. Obviously, everything else within it, of course, but I think the main part is that I guess I know that there's always someone here. There's always my best friend that's here. I'm new. That's here as well. So yes, I'll leave it at that. I won't.
Oh, that's really sweet. Mine seems a bit crap in comparison now.
It doesn't. And now the least favourite part of everything. I hate it.
No. The next question is, what's been the biggest challenge?
I think we can probably both agree on this, the fact that just the nature of our work and how we both are self-employed, we both work from home and on our laptops all day, every day. And the amount of times I think sort of the day before I'll be like, I've got calls all tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then that'll dictate what you have to do during the day, and then...
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Because it's been an interesting dynamic change in that way. Because not only do we live together, but we also technically work together. Not on the same thing, but just in the sense that we also spend the work day together.
Yeah, but also I think we end up being each other's sort of... Because because we are together, because we are friends in a way, we do speak about, and because it's so convenient that we're both in the same place, that whenever there is something that you would typically tell your partner about when you got home from work, but you might forget about, you're just right there to be able to say it. So in a way, the boundaries become blurred between what we both know about each other's jobs, the advice that we both give.
So we're learning to sort of find a balance between work and life that works for the relationship, I guess. It's only been 4 months, so it's trial and error still.
I haven't really ever been worried about it or anything like that, but I think we just subconsciously made efforts anyway to do that, and I'm sure we'll continue to work it out, and I'm sure because I guess we understand it, and I think that the best thing was that we raised it early on with each other, the fact that it wasn't even an issue, but we knew it could be an issue, and we raised it. I think that was a key point, that as long as we're both aware that this can become something that is going to cause friction between us, then we can at least action it easily, quickly. And I think that was key for us, and I think that would be key in any other areas if we were to have that. That we just need to understand it and be able to find solutions as fast as possible.
Yeah, I think that's a worthwhile point. I think when you live together, communication is key. You've got to bring something up essentially as soon as you're thinking it, because there's literally nothing ever good comes from just kind of festering. And we've sort of answered the next question I was going to ask. I feel like we keep doing this, and that's, how have you dealt with the loss of personal space? So obviously we've spoken there about the fact that we both work from home, but more generally, I guess, how has that been?
I feel like you're bothered about it. I would say that you're bothered about it more, not in again a bad way, but I would just say that I guess I just feel like I'm more comfortable with it than you maybe want more of your own personal space, because you have so many things that you need for your personal space anyway.
It's not about storage. The question isn't about storage.
I think the storage sort of personifies it all.
It hasn't really felt like an issue to me. And I don't know if that's maybe because we are travelling, we're not necessarily staying in one space together. So yes, I don't have all my belongings with me. But more generally, I don't know, it still feels like even though we live together, I don't feel like I have had to sacrifice anything that I did previously in a way. I keep up all the same hobbies that I had before, and we've got very separate hobbies as well. Well, not very separate, but
I think you've tried some of my hobbies and decided quite quickly that they are not one of your
Well, we have
hobbies.
some in common, but we're just not at the same level with them.
I mean, let me just give an example here as well. I've got a gym subscription here for
Oh no, you don't have to expose me.
Lydia decided, do you know what? I think I fancy going to the gym once before, because once it gets dark and rainy and stuff, it's not nice to sort of go outside in. So at the minute, Lydia has been to the gym once, paid a full month's membership, which I think was a good like £40 for just 1 month's gym, basically, and is probably never going to go back again. So it was a good one-time use of the
That's not the point.
And hated the entire thing as well.
It was an awful gym. I hated that gym, so I'm not in a rush to go back. But my point was that we still have things that we do separate from one another, which I think helps to maintain, that separation. Like, I'll go to yoga or I'll go to Pilates, you go to the gym, you go out on a run. Most days nowadays, one of us is working elsewhere at some point during the day. So I think it helps to create that separation. And I don't feel like I'm doing anything less than I was doing before. So obviously we've mentioned that we both work from home, but how would you say we cope, or how would you advise other people to cope if they've got different schedules? For example, if one person is out late and the other person wants an early night. I think it's difficult because we live quite similar lives and it's worked out quite well in that sense. Like, we have similar schedules and neither of us like a late night. I guess it comes back to communication, doesn't it? Like, a certain element of living together is compromise. So,
but again, I think we can relate that, because of course it's not necessarily a scenario that's like sort of overtly a problem for us, but I think we can relate it to maybe the scenario of the fact of if I work late, for example, even though we're in the same place, of course it's not the same thing if I'm working late and you're not. So I think we can relate it to that scenario, where I think that we've found, because obviously that can become an issue, and I think from communicating with each other, that we found the way to solve that is to essentially just recognise it, and even though it might not necessarily be something that's in your control, to be able to physically sort of designate separate time in a way that you can spend together that's not anything else, basically. It's like time that you both want to spend together and do like a specific thing, whether that's actually like doing an activity or something, or if it's just watching TV.
I think just what I was going to say on that topic is that an element of living together is compromising, in the sense that obviously you can't stop that other person if they want to go out late and you want to go to bed early. But what you can do is have a conversation, I guess, about how frequently those things are happening. Maybe it's worth talking about a frequency that you both feel comfortable with, maybe, in that sort of scenario. And like Sid said, also then maybe compensating some of it with something that you can both do together, and making sure that you're still spending that quality time with one another. Okay, we're going to finish on some nitty-gritty questions. How do you share expenses? Do you go 50-50? Yes. We do. We go 50-50 on pretty much all expenses, or at least expenses that we share. So things like rent, bills, food, shop, pretty much anything that we both use, we'll go 50-50 on. The only things that we don't go 50-50 on are the things that we don't share. If I'm buying tea or coffee.
Skincare.
Yeah, obviously Sid doesn't buy half my skincare, for example. If I'm buying tea and coffee and Sid's not going to drink it. And the way that we have found works really well in terms of splitting things is using Splitwise, the app. And this is something I used to use with my housemates at uni as well. So, for example, if I go out, do a food shop, spend X amount on my card, then I'll put it on Splitwise and it will split it between us. And then it makes sure that you're either balancing one another out with the expenses, or you can then calculate how much you owe one another and transfer each other that amount. Or we have a Starling bank account in which we'll pool money. So we'll both send in like £100 or whatever. We do this more if we're traveling. And then just spend on that card.
I think we do it now anyway. Like we always constantly have money in there, but it was also to know it's not a shared bank account. It's my bank account, and then we just both send equal amounts of money into it constantly to make everything easy. And we'll only ever have like a good like a couple of £100 in there at any time, and we do it quite regularly, so that it's not like we've got a load of money like that's from both of ourselves in like one account. You know, our money is still, our finances are still our own finances, but just living together, we just aim to split what feels necessary to split a lot of the time.
That leads us on to the next question, which is how do you balance the chores? I'd say that we have a pretty equal balance, and the way that I guess we got to this point is by actually communicating about it before we moved in together. I enjoy cooking. I am the better cook. And I don't mind doing things like the food shop and meal planning and, deciding what recipes we're going to eat. And Sid was happy for me to do that. So
it's a benefit for me.
So yeah, that's how we kind of split that one. But then in return, because I'm doing that, Sid then does a lot of the cleaning. So for example, after I've made dinner, he will do all of the cleaning up, which is often quite a lot of cleaning up.
I honestly don't know what you do. It's like you take out every piece of equipment that we have in the kitchen and just use it for something. I don't even know what it's being used for. You've just used it for something.
Yeah, it was necessary for the recipe. And then in terms of general flat cleaning, it's just sort of as and when. I don't know, we don't really actually communicate about it that much. I think it's just a case of if one of us starts cleaning and maybe needs the other one to help, then we'll help. We don't really have like a rota or a strict like cleaning schedule, I guess. It's just as and when feels necessary.
I guess also the thing to say as well is I don't think our spaces are very large, which helps in the cleaning effort as well.
I feel like this has ended up being a very, very long video, so we're going to end it here, but I hope this was of some value to maybe those of you that are in a similar position and are considering potentially moving in with your partner soon. Or I hope this was entertaining in some way. Maybe you learned something new about us. I don't know. I feel like we've sort of exposed one another a bit here. Make sure to like and subscribe if you have enjoyed. Follow me on my other social medias, especially Instagram and TikTok. And I will see you in the next video.
And I won't. Bye.
Bye.